You've seen a lot of VR. What's your reaction to it?
Very exciting, very, very exciting. A different space than early 3D. I was saying to Steve Sclair earlier, when we started working with 3D, I knew my product really well. I had 18 years worth of, understanding each little hair on the head. And then when we came into 3D, we were working with people who already had a huge understanding of 3D and a history. And so it was a sort of a perfect match. With VR, I'm feeling like I'm really holding back. Like the first second I saw 3D, I saw a sample of an NFL piece. I was like, yeah, I can see how we can make this ours. And with virtual reality, I'm just like, okay, where are the bits that feel like my bits that I can work with? And Victoria earlier mentioned a little bit of the wine tasting and then picking the bottle. And I do feel that is a little bit how I'm looking at VR. I'm seeing elements that I absolutely love. And I'm just wondering how I can bring them together and develop a language that's going to suit my style.
Someone said when new technology comes along, it's invented in Asia, Americans figure out how to make money with it, and the Europeans learn how to turn it into art. You worked intimately with Bono for 18 years. You designed all of their stage shows. Then you turned around and made a movie. And you broke the fourth wall of the movie. You had Bono creating graphics on the front of the screen. This could have easily been a VR piece, correct?
Yeah, and if somebody knows how to turn it into VR, it could look quite good in the VR space. I do feel, my role was the creative director for video content for the live shows. So I had a pretty good understanding of a 360 space. It's sort of ironic that we then did a tour called 360. But I understood the power of audience set design, lighting design, performance, the crescendos, the silent places, and everything else that an audience, to make the audience experience, even though you're there with 80,000 people, an individual experience at the same time. So in the VR space, that is the language. So it's going to be interesting to see how...
Here's what the New York Times said about your movie in the review. The person most responsible for the film, Catherine Owens, has brazenly ignored the traditional stipulations of making a traditional concert movie. She favors quick edits, slow dissolves rather than long takes. The result is a musical, experimental work that universally stimulates the sensation of thinking. The very idea of screen geography is thrillingly reconceived. So you broke all the rules of making a concert movie at that time. And there are a lot of people here who are trying to get their handle on creating a creative universe of VR content. Would you advise them? You and I talked about a concert piece that we saw.
Yeah.
Right? And the VR camera is put down and the band operates around it. And you had a real issue because your point was, for goodness sakes, move. So when you made this concert movie, you and Bono ignored all of the notions of what a movie should be. If you were talking to VR creative people working in music, what would you advise them to think about as they're creating it? Because right now I think the preconceived notion is, let's put a VR camera on a Madonna stage and we'll capture her concert in VR.
Well, I think we were, or certainly I was thinking in my mind at the time, we already had a performance experience under our belt. So with you too, my background is my interest in performance art and theater. So, U2 shows are very much a theatrical experience in that way. So I think I came into the 3D not from the point of view of a Hollywood, of a film, and that was sort of, part of a new Hollywood language or a new film language. I was coming to it from a point of view of how can we make the performative aspect work for this medium. It's the exact same conversation I'm having with myself right now over these few days and my sort of research work in the VR space. And I've heard a few things that are really resonating to me, and that is that you really have to imagine yourself in the VR space as you're designing. I mean, I like to design for my experiences, so I'm thinking, okay, how can I design in my head where I'm going into? I'm trying to think in a virtual way of thinking. I'm not necessarily sure I have to be in that virtual space to make my decisions, but I certainly need to be thinking, and it's definitely nothing to do with anything I've experienced before in film or video. So I'm now thinking, okay, how can I kind of recalibrate my brain for very different conversations?
I ask you, how in the world do you go about making an hour and a half, 100-minute concert film that you're going to shoot over how many concerts?
5.
5 over how many weeks?
Oh, God, I think, 3 weeks.
3 weeks.
I think.
You said I did not make a concert movie. I made 18 small movies and transitioned them into make a motion picture. That you built a creative theme around each major number of the show. Talk about that briefly.
Well, and funny, Scott mentioned it yesterday from Sony when he said that he was thinking in slices, creating slices, and I was like, yeah, that's going to be the way I'm going to be thinking about it. We created these 5 minutes pieces. I mean, we'd never made a film before. My editor hadn't edited a feature film before, but we really knew the format of video, the length and the editing, etc., and what you needed to get out of a 5-minute video piece. So we just looked at creating these 18 songs and then building an arc that would give you, as I say, the highs and the lows of a performance. Some songs were audience-based, some songs were singer-based, some songs were bass and drum-based. So we just sort of built in a language. Each song was color-corrected in a completely different way.
You've talked about it, but we are in a generation of consumers now, young consumers, who will go to Coachella, they will go to Burning Man, but ultimately they are consuming their media in short attention spans. They want their media bite-sized. We're all creating VR. This group here are creating VR right now in 5 to 7 minute pieces. You don't think that's a disadvantage at this point?
No, I think it's a distinct advantage. But I think also Victoria said another thing today that was very important, and that is that, what is the content going to be? I mean, certainly an endless round of battles and shootings and killings and etc., chopping off bits and pieces, isn't really going to keep this business, I don't think, going as much as that idea of going into your narratives really work. It's going to be a lot of hard work, and that the short attention span on the kind of soundbite culture is definitely going to pose a challenge for people, because they're going to have to delve into their hearts and their souls to really decide what kind of story they're going to deliver.
If you tomorrow were asked by Bono to put a team together to create the first VR experience for U2, what would you tell them? And let's say you picked them out of this audience and said, okay, I have been given this assignment. I've done this before. Come with me. I'm going to do this. Where would you send them? What would you have them do to get in the mindset of VR?
Well, first of all, you two have done a VR piece with Chris Milk on the Within, in the Within label, and our group, and it's really beautiful. Have a look at it. It's a very different kind of language for them. For me, I'm really a little more music-driven, so I've had an audio producer here with me, Kevin Killen, for the last couple of days, because I want him to really understand and learn the VR space for audio. So I would start with audio, really learn how that space is working for audio, and then build around that. So we're going to do some experimenting on putting sound into the space, and then see how the visual will be driven by the sound, because I really want to try and push that in tandem, which is what we did with U2 3D. The sound, it took us nearly as long to edit as the film.
You said, I think we go see some live theater. You didn't say I'd take them to the movies. You didn't say I'd take them to a concert. You said live theater. Why live theater?
Well, live theatre has the advantage of, when you're the audience member, you've got to track your performers, and you also have to imagine what's happening both on the stage and off the stage through entrances and exits and timing and lighting cues. And so I feel that performance space for theatre and performance art is definitely, as I said to Jim before, people who understand that space are going to have an automatic understanding of the VR space. And for young VR developers or anyone getting into VR, I would really suggest that you go and see some really great theatre, especially experimental theatre, to see how people are using that space and that language, and put that under the hat while you're working in VR.
I have less than 30 seconds. I ask you, if you're looking to hire someone to put on your creative team, you said, I'd like them to have a little obsessive compulsive behavior in them. In 15 seconds, who would you want to hire around you to make this?
Oh, God, that's a good question. Well, what I've been doing out here in LA is really looking under all of the bonnets to see where all the good people are. And I have been enjoying the experiences when I'm down in Sony, over at Jaunt, out with it. I mean, it's very hard to say who, but because everybody has something different to offer. So I'm open to suggestions.
So she's agreed. She's going to hang around the rest of the afternoon. So you'll have a chance to meet her. Thanks for coming out from New York.
Thank you, Jim.
And I can't wait to see your
Thank
first
you.
VR piece.
Thank you.
And thanks for bringing your clip.